Welcome back to episode 82 of Your Wealth and Beyond. I'm your host, Andrew Ruffell, and today we have a remarkable guest in. Shannon Breen is joining us in the Dream Plan Retire studio. Shannon is the co-CEO and founder of FreightVana, which is a digital logistics partner powered by technology and built on trust and transparency, which we're going to go through a lot today. Yeah. Shannon's a self-described serial entrepreneur with a background in finance. We're going to talk through today on your career path from working with one of the bigger entities in your industry and with the Your Wealth and Beyond podcast about helping business owners and entrepreneurs struggle, trials and tribulations, and how they can grow their companies through all of that. So welcome to the show. We're pleased to have you today.
Thanks for having me. It's good. Great studio.
Well, thanks. So the Your Wealth and Beyond podcast, we're all about helping entrepreneurs, and who better to step in and talk through on that today on someone who, had a vision and a dream. And let's look back a little bit in your career path. How'd you get started in the logistics industry?
Yeah, a friend, that friend just got announced to be CEO of one of the largest trucking companies in the country. But back in 2012, he was in year 10 of his career and just got named CFO. And he had called me. I had a background in finance myself. I was working for a finance company locally here in the Valley and doing some FP&A work. And he had called. And honestly, I think, for myself, how do you get to transportation? Well, I'm doing finance. I like finance. Yeah. I'm pretty good at finance. But at the end of the day, I really miss kind of the people interactions. And so when I had the opportunity to join transportation, I didn't know what I was doing. And so in the summer of 2012, he called me and I interviewed with him, and at that time, the CEO. And they found a spot for me, and I came on board, and I really just fell in love with the chaos of transportation, all the moving parts, the people, the opportunities. And so I felt like I love at first sight, so to speak, and I just dove head first and started learning all about the terms and the systems, and never looked back over the last 12 years.
That's great. So, a lot of the listeners and the viewers, we see the trucks out there, we get our stuff, but we don't really understand the mechanics of it, right? So real high level, just a elevator in regards to elevator speech of how the logistics, the stuff gets from one place to the other, all the intricacies that we don't know as the common person.
Yeah, it says the common person, a couple of things you don't appreciate when you go to a grocery store, right? You go to a grocery store and everybody just gets their things, but you don't realize that comes from thousands and thousands of different vendors that all have different supply chains to get it there. The reality is there's a ton of product that moves on the trains, but trains are only specific in the routes they run. So over-the-road trucks in the U.S. bring almost everything that you consume at some point is going to be on a truck, whether it's the grocery store, whether it's the cars that you're purchasing. Everything moves around the country from the port of entries, whether that's California or the East Coast, on trucks. And so trucking is just a major part of the American ecosystem, and it directly follows purchasing power and what's moving and what's being sold, everything from clothing to food to cars, like I said. So even fracking, right? When you talk about fracking and the oil industry, it has a huge impact on the overall trucking industry. So hundreds of thousands of different trucking companies, obviously thousands of small, medium, and large size shippers that ship stuff throughout the country. So the opportunity, the overall business, I'd say, is close to an $800 billion a year business in regards to like U.S. based just trucking.
And you hear about the big boys, and obviously you worked for Knight coming in 2012, but it's still a fragmented industry in theory.
Huge, wildly fragmented. Okay. So what people don't realize, like Knight and then eventually Knight Swift being this small little percentile of trucking companies, right? So I talked about the thousands of participants. I'll give you an interesting stat to maybe frame it up. There's only about 150 trucking companies in the entire U.S. for hire that have more than 400 trucks. So therefore, most of the trucks you see on the road, about 80+% of the capacity is made up of an amalgamation of single owner operators, right? One truck, one trailer guys, all the way up to 100. And that 1 to 100 truck fleets make up 85% of all the trucks you see on the road. So it's an interesting, very, very dynamic marketplace, and hence, companies like ours are really valuable because we become matchmakers. We start to bring that long tail of that capacity together, and then through our trailer pool system, which we can talk about a little bit more, we're giving those opportunities for those small guys to participate in pieces of business that normally they wouldn't. So
okay, awesome. So you in 2012 got started at Knight, and then through the next 8 years or so, you learned a lot about the industry, different areas of the firm itself. And so what led you in 2020 with your partner to look at things and say, you know what, I've got this great job. I'm doing really well. I'm keep growing with this firm, and I'm comfortable, but you know what? I think we can do it better.
Yeah.
What led you to do that?
I think a couple of things, right? There's personal aspects anytime you make the big leap. So for me, there's the personal drivers. As my dad was always really interested in entrepreneurship. I watched him get sick, about 5 years ago, and watched him battle that. My mom and dad were school teachers for 3.5 decades. Right? Elementary school teachers. So, but he always had he had an entrepreneurial spirit in the summers, right? Because when you're school teachers back in the day before year-round school, you'd have to do a summer job. And so my dad would work a car lot. My dad would do different side businesses to try to, I think, stoke his entrepreneurial interest, but also make a little bit of side money because anybody that has been in education knows that there's not a ton of money in elementary education. And so my dad always did that. And so watching him get sick, watching him work his whole career and then be, kind of afflicted and watch that was a big motivating factor for me. And kind of realizing like, hey, now might be my time. Like, why wait? If I'm going to go, I want to go early. It's a little bit of an ode to my father who had that entrepreneurial spirit. He's still fighting. He's doing well, but it's amazing. He follows the industry now. He reads the market reports. He sends me articles. He's just really proud of what we're doing and building. And for me, it's special to kind of take that leap as an honor to him and all the entrepreneurial spirits he and I both had. So I think there's that. I think there's just also when you learn about an industry, most startup companies, when you look at the founding teams, they come from some level of expertise within an industry and then build enough confidence and knowledge of that industry to spread out and do it their own. And so I don't think we're too dissimilar from that. Yeah. I saw some really successful entrepreneurs in our space, and I felt like, hey, we could make these tweaks. We could follow these certain paths. And you kind of look at a variety of different participants and say, like, if we can kind of build it with these components, not these components, I think we can do some really interesting stuff, and felt like we had the right plan and team to do it. So
did it take you like a year or 6 months? Like, what was the game plan, the strategy as you and your partner, John?
John, yeah.
So,
John Gamero, yeah.
So you guys were working together at Knight?
Yeah,
okay.
he had we went knowing each other since high school. He went a different route for schooling and banking and heavy private equity, and he ended up joining Knight in 2015, so a couple of years after me. Did mergers and acquisitions for them, and so that was part of the plan, was that we could build out this logistics arm, but at the same time, we have an advisory arm within our logistics organization, or I'd say our overall parent organization. So that gave us a lot of diversity that, quite honestly, people that just start out don't have. And so between our experience, the diversity, our investors that helped us to get a really good start, a running start, I'd say, it was all the commensurate pieces we needed to really kick off FreightVana.
Well, and going to business with a childhood friend, somebody that you knew and you trusted, that also goes a long way. It can be a good thing, and also it also can veer off into that and be like, oh no, I'm in business with this person. But obviously for you guys, turned out that you both bring a lot of things to the table, but also have that trusted mindset that, hey, we've been in the weeds together, growing up in the East Valley, and been through a lot.
Yeah, certainly. You've had business partners, and it's like any relationship, right? It's not roses and rainbows in every season.
It's like marriage.
Yeah,
like
it's you work through your spots, but we've accomplished a lot in our last 2.5 years. We're really proud of it. We're excited this year. There's going to be a huge inflection year for us as we kind of go to the next stage and raise our next round of capital, kind of build FreightVana into the future. So we're excited.
So what was the niche, or what is the niche? What FreightVana built on, technology and transparency. But what did you guys look at and say, okay, here's our missions, here's our values, here's how we're going to grow this, as you're presenting it out to the investors and presenting it to yourselves, probably to your family. Very big decision, to leave a cushy corporate corporate world and to embark on something that in your mind, we're going to make it, but still there's that trepidation.
Two big pieces, I'd say. There's many differentials you'd like to say, but I think the two core fundamentals, let's hit on the transparency and trust part. So our industry works like many, and the term broker has a negative connotation.
In all industries.
In almost all, right? Because it almost feels icky, right? Oh, I'm a broker. And it feels like there's like secret there.
Yeah.
There's like, well, what do you know that I don't know? And and in our industry, it's no different, right? So we talked about that long tail of the carriers. And then we've got the shippers, right? Well, they use us as an intermediary, right? A third-party logistics provider in the middle. And a lot of folks have, for many years, been brokers. But there's a lot of distrust. There's a lot of gamesmanship gets played on both sides. There's the walls that are up. You tell the shippers like, hey, wouldn't you like to know this? That's your value stream, right? So you create that value in the middle by not sharing, right? And for the carriers that don't have access to the shippers, you do the same. And that game gets played over and over and over. And a lot of companies have been wildly successful building huge businesses on that model. Mm-hmm. So one of the things we thought about was, hey, what if we can be more trusted? What if we share more information with both sides? What if we have honest conversations? And yes, we do want to make money, right? Because we're in business to make money. But at the end of the day, it's not as opportunistic as the traditional provider would have been. So everything from the way we structured our teams, our incentives for our people, the systems, the proprietary systems we've built are all predicated on that trust and transparency, because we feel like with our transparency and our technology, we can deliver a different level of trust, and hence customer acquisition, customer stickiness will all be different. And I'd say, as I look back 2.5 years, well, none of it's been perfect and never is, as you know, we were able to cover and have covered a lot of ground when the traditional market has been going down. The overall market's been going down, but we've been able to accelerate our footprint, our market share, and that's been really exciting to win in the face of a lot of challenges. And so that's why we're really bullish on the future, because we figure as the macroeconomics change, we'll be in a really good position to continue to grow our team and our business.
And so this transparency of the technology, so you talked through on where the bigger companies, they create a moat almost where they control it, and the other guy, the other firm just is kind of waiting. It's like, okay, is it going to happen?
Yeah, and what's my price today? Or maybe you're maximizing price, or maybe they call for that deal that used to spend $1,200, but something changed and it's a Friday night and they really need you. So, hey, now it's $1,600. But then that broker gets that connotation because, well, but did you really pay? Did it cost you that much more on the backside to get that truck on that Friday night, or am I just taken advantage of?
It's kind of like surge pricing on Uber.
There you go. There you go. And who gets paid that money? Does the driver actually get that money, or is that just going to the mothership, so to speak? And wouldn't you want to know that, right?
I just heard that Wendy's is coming out with potential surge pricing during peak times.
I heard they got slayed on that. I heard they backed off of that.
They backed off fast, right? Because it's like, what are you, and you're hitting the people that really need the but so that. But that has been the norm of these bigger companies that come in whatever industry, and it's like, hey, you need us, and we're gonna gouge basically. It's all about margins, right?
I mean, watch it in the autos, right? When COVID happened, we saw a lot of that. We've seen what was gouging versus necessity in regards to supply chain and costing. When they asked you for $10,000 extra dollars for that. And some of the autos were smart. I felt like they got ahead of that. There was a couple of the autos that demanded that their dealerships would not charge those 10, 12, 14,000 premiums, because they're like, hey, that's going to leave a bad taste in our consumer's mouth, because ultimately they know that the water will recede at some point, and they're going to have that feeling of like, oh, I overpaid. And ultimately their brand was attached to it. So unlike maybe the Wendy's or what was proposed, there were some of the auto guys that were really quick to be like, we are not doing this. Yeah. Because it's not it's going to change, and we don't want to be at the backside of that.
When did you guys turn on the lights? Was it in 2020?
June of 21.
21.
Yeah.
Okay.
So resigned in January of 21. Hired a couple dozen people on the same day, in just the end of May of 21, and we opened the doors June 2nd of 2021.
So at that point, when we were still dealing with the COVID supply chain, you got things aren't moving. That's a tough time to, because still we kind of saw some light at the end of the tunnel, but it wasn't fully there yet in early 21.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think entrepreneurs, everyone always questions timing. Mm-hmm. Good time, bad time. I mean, And so when we set it up, we kind of put our head down. I think we use the term kind of burn the boats, right? Like once we quit our corporate jobs, one thing, and people ask me all the time, like, hey, why don't you build it like on the side? And I felt like that was not living up to my commitment to the job I had. And also I kind of wanted no ability to turn back. And I think for entrepreneurs, some people at work, some people are able to do two at once. I think for me, I wanted to just step away and put all of my focus, energy, and passion into, getting the funding, building the team, setting up the systems. And so we did that. But on timing, right, to go back to that, I don't think there's ever a perfect time. I think that the biggest leap is always the first one they talk about in the entrepreneurial journey. And ultimately the markets and cycles will change, but you've got to get started, right? People that are like waiting for the right time. I heard this quote the other day and you appreciated this guy was like, waiting for something along the lines of like waiting for the perfect time is like the graveyard of opportunities lost because, I all these excuses and this, well, it's not the right time. He's like, you'll always be able to convince yourself that it's not the right time.
Yep, and so many, that don't take that leap, they'll be 85 sitting on the park bench and just thinking back of what I missed out on, what I could have done. And, being an entrepreneur, there's a very small percentage of people that can actually follow through on it, put their blinders on and just say, I am going to make this work. And if it fails, we're going to figure out a way to be successful. And, as you get older, though, it does get harder to fail in a business. And, fortunately for you guys, failing was an option.
Yeah.
And taking that leap of faith was.
Yeah, I had little kids. I smiled when you said it because I had this. It's weird what motivates you, right? I had a book, but I also had a video, 1 minute video on, I'll share it with you offline, from Denzel Washington. He's speaking, but the guys did it up like music and stuff. And you talked about being 85. Well, the premise of this deal is like, hey, it's like everybody talks about life is short, right? And that just the term gets thrown, but it doesn't carry like the weight because it just gets used to. I'm like, well, life's short, life's short, life's short. What does that mean? But he's doing this commencement speech and, he talks about it, and I literally get chills when I still think about it because he basically walks through and he says, he frames it up in this picture. And what he does is he says, laying in your bed from now, decades from now, or on your deathbed, will be the ghosts of your unfulfilled potential, the opportunities you didn't take, the opportunities you didn't act upon, and that will be the thing that haunts you the most when you get to the very end. And so for me, now you realize I haven't quit my corporate job, but it pays really well. And you're sitting there like, I have this idea. I know I want to make this leap. And so it became like my spirit animal that I'd watch kind of crazily multiple times a week because whenever I had that doubt, I'd play that video and be like, but what about when I picture myself 4 decades from now, 5 decades from now, if that's the time. And I think about when I was in my 40s, right? I'm in almost my mid 40s. And like, I didn't take that opportunity. And for me, that idea of what Denzel and kind of, envisioned and pictured in that was scarier than, well, what if it doesn't work? Well, what about my 3 and 5 year old kids and my family that I support? What about the house? What about my 25-year career? What if? But I had this other thing that was driving me more powerfully, which was like, what about that bed and those ghosts? And so I always use the term no ghosts for me because it brings me back to that video. And it's like, yeah, no ghosts, like don't have those regrets and take those leaps. And that's what we did. So
that is powerful stuff. So, listeners, those of you that have not taken that leap, again, it's not for everybody, but just think about the power of that, envision it, and just actionable steps, whatever motivation that you need. And we'll hopefully get that video. We'll have it part of the show notes, but powerful stuff. Sometimes you've just got to look at your mission. You've got to have also the foundation at home. For you, this was a big leap, and the family was there to support you.
Absolutely.
And just knowing that there can be no failure. We're going to make this happen. So you talk about the technology that's proprietary. So how did that work? Did you guys have to go in and with your expertise? Were you able to build it from the ground up?
Yeah, we did actually. Yeah, we built it all in house. The benefit of hiring that large, talented team. Our CTO I'd worked with for multiple years. Met him during the merger process with Swift. And so he had a team that was really talented and we knew kind of that mission. And so, yeah, we built it from the ground up, built it in-house, which, sometimes it's always the build or buy, but when you're doing custom, unique stuff like we do with that transparency platform, or like we're doing with our trailers, because we own close to 700 trailers nationally, right? That are moving that product around the country. Like, you just have to build some of your own stuff if you have different aspirations or focal points in your business. And so I know that, or you can partner with someone that can build, right? But for us, we luckily had the talent, had invested in the talent, and so we built it internally.
Yeah, and having it where you guys know exactly what needs to be built, being able to then not have the IT person that's working in a different state, different country, being able to have boots on the ground. So you also had to sell, though, the vision to these people that made the leap with you too.
Yeah, 24 people.
Wow.
Right, 24 people, and they're joining a company that has zero history. They're joining a company that has zero operating systems, zero customers. And so it's a lot of faith for them too. And I think it's a testament to hopefully how I operated alongside them for a decade, or for some of them a half a decade after the merger. And so I think, they all saw the opportunity and took the leap with us, and I'm forever grateful for that. It's a huge motivating factor for me when people are like, hey, well, despite all the pain and the challenges of being a business owner, which there are so many.
But it gives you the confidence knowing that 20 plus people came with you.
Yeah, and we're close to 100 now, right? And so when I wake up in the morning and people say, hey, what motivates you? It's like it truly is the 100 people that depend on that paycheck, the 100 people that pay their mortgages, their cars, that pay for their kids' sports, do their fun things with their family. Like, I take great pride in being able to have a business that does that. And so when I get out of bed in the morning, it really makes it much bigger than my own personal aspirations, because I feel like I'm doing it for a bunch of other people. And I think that is incredibly powerful for me. I'm not really personally driven from like a financial or like an ego perspective. So for me, like, being a part of a team's a huge deal. Being a point guard is kind of how I look myself, more like distributing and figuring out how to lead us to a victory. And so it just fits my personality and everything so well.
Yeah, and it's not just 100 people. It's really probably 500 people, because each of them have families and kids and supporting maybe their parents as well. So that's a good visual to look at. Here at Baintree, we have 11 employees, but over 400 client families that we work with. So we set the mindset that every day we're coming to work to put them in the best position possible. So it's 11 plus the 400 plus all the ancillaries
20,
of the
30,
kids.
40,
So,
you get 500-600 people easy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you got to look at what we can do, what you can do to, from our standpoint as leaders, how can we get better every day? So let's talk a little bit about that. You went from being an executive of having some people under you to now this, and I wouldn't call it an accidental business owner, because you knew you were going into this. A lot of people in our industry, they go from they're good at advising clients, and all of a sudden they have 11 people that they've got to manage, right? Or 20 people that they have to manage. So for me, it's constant going through and, continually bettering myself. And I joined EO Entrepreneurs Organization back in 2018, which has been helpful. So what have you done to become the best leader that you can be as you continue to grow this from, 25 people now to 100, and who knows where the future will
I think I'd start by quitting your job. Right. So you work so long in like corporate America to get to certain places, right? And you get, a whole deal on what's your title and what's your role and your responsibilities and your compensation, and you're able to build this life. So I'd say my first piece of building was to walk away from it all. And for 5 months, have no title, have no compensation, also have no health insurance. So thanks for all the Cobra fans out there. Right, really, really cheap. But I think that was a great reset for me. Because what I really was able to do is figure out me, and not me in the corporate sense, but like what was valuable to me. My friendships got stronger. My relationships, you talk about, family and the bet that needs to be made in the support system. Like my wife and I's relationship was even stronger, because now we were a different type of team. It felt different, right? As we took this big leap. So I'd say that part. And then the second part, I'd say, as we've gone deeper into FreightVana, is I always felt like there was this hole for me on truly giving back. I always felt like I did a good job with the people under my care and responsibility from a team perspective, in making them know they were valuable. But I go back to like my parents, who taught and I felt it wasn't selfless because they were getting paid, but my dad and mom did so much extracurricular stuff for people. And I felt like that was missing. And so for me, I joined a nonprofit and joined their board, well-known one out here in the state, State 48, the foundation. And I knew the brand. And Mike's actually, who's the CEO, he's become a good friend over the last 2 years. But what I didn't realize is that right in COVID, he created a foundation for local entrepreneurs. And so for me, that was this part where I had always, oh man, I should give back more. I should do more in the community. And it always found a reason not to, right? Whether it was career, responsibility,
busy,
all the
kids,
things. And so I leaned into that. And for me, it's been really a fulfilling journey over the last basically year and a half, joining that board, involved with Mike, speaking to local entrepreneurs, sharing my stories. It has been so fulfilling from a growth perspective because it has nothing to do with FreightVana and business and moving truckloads of freight around the great country we live in. It's all about like giving back to Phoenix, which I've now lived in for almost 34 years. I love the state and I love, just what's happening here in the state. And it was a really cool way to give back and just added a whole different dimension, I think, to me personally, which, I think has helped my overall growth.
Giving you that
as a leader.
Additional purpose.
Yeah.
What type of things have you built at the firm to, with the culture aspect, to make it a place where your employees care about coming to work and enjoy coming to work? What are some of the things that you guys have built that maybe you didn't have at the big company?
Yeah, I'd say like at corporate America, I share this story a lot. One of the biggest I'd say is we're very open to people having their own brand and their own voice, especially on social media. So a lot of times in some past life, right, it's all controlled. It's a certain group. Your marketing departments are the only ones that can do it because there's so much risk in the brand. Well, when we started from scratch, having no revenue, no customers, and wanting to get the word, like we opened it up and really gave people autonomy to have a brand and have a voice. And ultimately, if you trust your people, you should be able to have them be out on social media. And it's been a superpower for us because two things happen. One, there's an authenticity because people see a diverse number of our employees with different voices and passion points in this. And ultimately, they're all FreightVana employees. We do some fun and zany stuff also. And then when we do our interview process, and that's been great for us locally, I mentioned we've almost 5x'd our team since we started, and we don't use recruiters, right? We get a lot of different run from referral networks and local stuff. I saw you on social media and this. And so we've really utilized. So I think that's different. In a past life, we did not promote individuals, and it's definitely not individual brands that had anything to do, intersected with the company, right? It was very much only a few people will speak for the company, and this is how we do business, right? Because you're not trusted, right? It's basically what it comes down to. And so we flipped that script. I wanted to flip that paradigm and say, hey, like, I trust you, like, tell your story and let's have some fun with it too. It doesn't need to be buttoned up, but like, be appropriate, right? There's always a line. But it's been great for us, and people, I get so much love and commentary from around the country, from people that are like, I just love the way your team's like shows up. And, it feels like you know us, even though maybe we haven't met yet when you watch our social media, and that's been a really cool differentiator.
Yeah, and it's great to have people, supplying the resume even when you may not even be hiring. So it's most of the time it's, we need that headhunter to go and find that person because they are so closed off from the world, or a stodgy corporate where they just don't show who they are. So that's awesome. What else have you done that, being able to have this blank slate of building the company culture? So you had mentioned things like setting things up where you have with the teams and different compensation, but all of that ties back into the transparency as well. So everyone's aligned together. Yeah,
we do weekly huddles. We share our team information. We're very open with where we're winning and where we're losing. So it's not like for a certain group of individuals. So we share that with our teams. And hey, that we talked about a lot. That sometimes that transparency cuts both ways, right? If we have a bad month and we lose money in a month, right? Let's say we lose a few $100,000. Well, depending on the role, maybe that creates panic. Like, oh, should I refresh my resume? Like, are we going to make it? Are we going to survive? And so it's interesting. As you become wildly transparent, it creates, just like anything else, there's no perfect science. Then you're like, oh, but I will give you all the color to that. And I've got to give you the background scenario now, right? And so we've continued to step through it, but all trying to be very authentic and real with our folks. I think that is where we've hung a shingle that you may not love what you hear, but like it will be direct and it will be passionate and it will be what we believe in. And so, and if we're losing, we're going to talk about how we're losing, and we're not going to gaslight that or pretend like we're winning when we're losing. And I think that is what really good professionals and the new generation of employees are looking for. It's that real factor, and hopefully we deliver that. So
a lot of listeners might be thinking, well, you left this big firm, you took a bunch of people. Was that an issue, or was that because certain industries, it becomes harder to do that, right? So was that something that you guys had to deal with in regards to not being able to, well, you obviously got them, but is your industry a little bit different than others where it's more open?
Yeah, I'd say that's semantics. That you say I took them, I'd say they chose to be there, right? Individually, right? I think our last company is a big organization. I think, from a contractual perspective, had all the ability to do that, so I wasn't breaking any contractual code, and ultimately I think created opportunities even in the vortex that was created at the last place for new people to step up and fresh ideas to emerge there. So that's how I would sell it to you. But I think for the crew that decided to come, I think you see a very passionate and driven and tight group of individuals that feel like we can change the game and also change their own narrative a little bit, right? I've got a developer on my team. And he told a special story on our day one as we were going around the room talking about our whys and why leave and make the bet. And he said, hey, because when my kids grow up, I want them to know that their dad was willing to make bets on himself and good people.
Back to your story.
And that's why I'm here. And like that to me was quintessentially why we did what we did. It wasn't to inflict pain. It was to create opportunity. And so, hey, these a lot of these folks have equity in the company, and so substantial equity in the company. Maybe not the large company. When they say you have equity, but it doesn't really materially change your life. The people that we have on our founding team and some others, like we can materially change people's lives. That is a huge motivating factor.
The brand name. So how did you come up with FreightVana? I've always loved to hear the story behind the name.
Yeah, I was working out in a gym and was literally attempting to do some pull-ups, and Johnny had come back and I just threw it at him. And from a marketing perspective, I'd say probably more the marketer than he is. He would probably say that too, but I just threw it at him like FreightVana, right? I'd seen, you got your T-Vanas, your Carvanas, all these other Vanas. And I didn't want it to be like last name logistics or that, no offense to anybody, but there's a lot of just ABC logistics. And I mean, there's so many, right? So it's like, hey, what sticks out from a branding perspective? And I've just always loved marketing. And so I said the name and I was like, I like that ring. But then you ultimately have this panic that oh, for sure that's taken or this or that. And so ran back, did the search, and no one was really using it, was fully available. No one had the rights. And so I was like, I felt like, hey, unless something else comes up, that's the one we're going with. Because I'd just been stewing on what it could be. And it just, when I said it, it had a great ring. And obviously, there's local company in Carvana did huge, great things with their team. And we just felt like, hey, that's a cool opportunity in freight. People know what we're moving. We're moving freight. But then we're going to do it in this kind of standard and way that gives you that kind of Nirvana-like feel. So
that's great. It does have a ring to it, and I'm sure now a lot of people, they've seen the trucks, and they've they see it, and it just starts becoming now. Oh yeah, right. I've seen that again.
What's cool about the trailers, right? So we don't run the trucks, we run the trailers, right? But what's so cool? There's millions of trailers on the road, and like a lot of your viewers, we talked about the grocery store. You don't notice the trucks on the road until you're in trucking. It's just an afterthought. Mm-hmm. You don't notice the logos. You don't notice what's happening. It's just, you're not in the business. So it's just, you go from, let's say, Phoenix to California, you'll pass 300 trucks, easy, right? But you won't pay attention to any of them. But when you're in trucking, you pay attention to them all. Well, we through our marketing efforts, I give a lot of credit to Josh Breeze on our director of marketing and recruiting. He created this deal like Friends of FreightVana. And so now we've taken this commoditized deal, which is a trailer, which no one really pays attention to. And every time someone sees them, they post them online and they'll put hashtag Friends of FreightVana. Oh, I saw you guys out in New Jersey and this. And now we've taken this thing that typically has been it's just a throwaway, right? It's just it's just a trailer on the back of a truck. And we've kind of made it cool, and we've got all this love and support around the country. So whenever we run trailers from here all the way to Maine. And so whenever people see them, they post them and we'll send them some swag or just something cool. But it's been a fun deal to and super proud for me and the family when we're going to California, we're driving. And I mean, my 9-year-old just lights up in a way where he just is crazy excited to see it. And I am too, but to watch like my family feel that pride as it's rolling down the road, it's pretty special.
Yeah. Once we started, working together, I started seeing it all. It's one of those things.
You pay attention.
It's like, there it is again. There it is again. It's going up the Flagstaff and so forth. So as you continue to grow this company, we're at 100 people right now. Where do you envision the next 3 to 5 years?
Doubling? Oh, we're going to more than double.
Double the employees.
Yeah. We'll probably, I'd say in 3 to 5, 3 to 4x, based on our plans, our capital plans, our expansion plans, and what we've done so far. So, we're in a really good spot. We got a lot of great support and people interested in kind of being a part of our next phase now that we've built it, right? I think for entrepreneurs out there, much different when you're, to give examples on a seed round, when you walk in with a PowerPoint and yourself, that's what people are betting on. It's like they have nothing to go off of. Yeah. Like it's just what you tell them and what they believe in you. That's it. That's what a seed round raise looks like. And maybe they know about your industry, but what you'll find, and you probably know because of your guys' community, most investors really don't know like the commensurate pieces of all the investments they put out there. And so they rely on other people to be the experts. So they're really betting on you and your team. In my case, for the seed round, they're betting on me and my team. And so, but now we've got a business. We've got close to 9 figures in revenue. We've got the 100 people. We've got the brand. We've got this. So now that's a different type of investor that comes in that wants to take you to that next level. And so it's been really exciting. That's what we're working on now. And so it'll be a very interesting year for us. And I'm really hopeful and believe that we'll be in a good spot here in a few months to make the commensurate investments to accomplish the growth that I told you about.
And going from 20 to 50 to 100, that's a challenge. But now going from 100 to potentially 500, 600, what have you guys on the leadership team talked through on us? How do we got this great culture, built it, everyone's aligned together for the mission, the values. How do we keep employee number 507 tied into the same way that employee 31 was?
Yeah, I think a lot more investments in training development resources. We've got the base level stuff, but to your point on expanding, you got to have resources against it. And so when you come in startup mode, right, everything's kind of a little bit shoestring and put together, maybe not where you want it. I think that's the interesting part for me is like I've been able to perform in this business at multi-hundreds of millions because that was my job prior. And so I feel like I know the commensurate pieces. You can't always have them all because you don't have the same budget, you know what I mean? And capital constraints. But I think that's where the next layer of investment will really take flight, and we'll be able to put in some of those processes and systems and people that can really make sure, to your point, we've got even a better procedure for employee number 400 that, employee number 22 is just going to have a completely different experience.
You guys looked at Trainual?
We do use Trainual.
There you go.
We do use Trainual, actually. We've got it in a couple places of our business now, and it's a pretty effective platform, locally grown. Yeah. Love to support the local guys. He's actually a supporter of Mike and the State 48 Foundation, too. And so, we use some Trainual.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's, document, delegate, and as you continue to grow, it gets harder and harder. And, more so you want to be in the weeds, but you can't be in the weeds like you were in 21, 22.
Right.
What's some of the biggest struggles that you and John have faced as you've taken this from a dream and a vision to now a company that's operating and kicking butt and looking to continue to grow this?
Yeah, I think for me, everything I've done, I think the biggest struggle, so it's interesting when you start to play in like the equity markets of like what your company's worth, winning looks much different than just like a core P&L, right? And so for me, whether it was school when I was a kid or sports, there's a scoreboard and there's, what winning is, right? Like I'm a heavy competitor. When you start a business, it's hard to define what winning is because maybe you're not winning on like the P&L the way you would want. Maybe you're not making tons of money in your early stages, and very rarely do hyper growth companies also hyper profitable right out of the gates because you're reinvesting and you're spending the money. And so I think for me, the biggest challenge has been just wrapping my head around redefining winning from a business perspective in that, we might not be wildly profitable every month, but we still could be winning. So it's you know what I'm saying? Yeah. You want to be wildly profitable, but to grow at the pace we're growing and be wildly profitable, like we haven't quite figured that out yet, but we're very good stewards of our capital stack. And I think that's where the next round of investors are really, and this is what gives me great joy as well. I'll go have a conversation, they'll ask me for the story, and I'll give them the story, I'll give them some of the analytics, and they're like, that's amazing. And it's like, is it? Like, I don't know, it feels rough and tough and that we're losing, but they're just wildly amazed at what we've done with what we started with. And so it's a weird duality, because ultimately they're going to invest and we're going to want to be a multi-$100 million company. And so that's been a hard mind shift for me personally to figure out how to redefine winning.
Look at Amazon for decades.
I know.
Did not make any money. And I know you're not you are a tech company, so you're putting the money in. And so that's how you guys have to look at it, is you're, obviously in the business of growing it. You don't want to have, you guys weren't going to leave to build a lifestyle practice, right?
Right.
So this is part of the deal. But it is harder when you're just like, you don't want to see that quarterly number. But you know what that quarterly number, because we put that investment in here, we hired these people here, it's going to bring fruit in 2 years. Sometimes you got to just put the blinders on.
Mm-hmm. And when I worked for a publicly traded company, like your division didn't have an equity amount. You were part of a monstrosity.
Right.
So it didn't really ever get attributed that way, right? Then it just and it also had 27 years of history combined when I was running it. So like there are expectations on, oh no, we make this much money, we need to make this, and no matter how much you made, you need to make more, right? Like it's a publicly traded firm, and that makes sense. So this is a different environment. So that shift has been an education beyond, and that's why this year will be really interesting. Like I said, inflection point for us as we continue to learn and grow and do it for the first time.
The next chapter, right?
Yeah.
The second next chapter.
Yeah.
In the industry itself right now, we're starting to see, like, economically, we didn't have the recession that everybody had thought we would, but you guys had more. You've seen the average person hasn't really, besides inflation, hasn't really felt much, but you've seen it in the industry that, that it was a struggle, for the last few years that a lot of us didn't even see.
Yeah, I think you're seeing it like in the retail numbers, right? I think you're seeing it in the auto stats. I think there's some stuff out there like, maybe not quote unquote a recession, but I think you're seeing some slowdown in purchasing power. I think you're seeing the autos start to have some inventory challenges and wonder how they're going to clear those out. In our space, logistics, I look at my wife's in real estate and mortgage. Like there's not a lot of markets that I know are booming, right? And so I think for us, it's just working our way through this and getting back to a point where there's a little bit healthier, I think, on the spending front. Ultimately, everything that moves in the truck, we talked about it, everything from all the services and goods and TVs and furniture, it all comes based on consumer purchasing. And so I think it'll be, an interesting year, being an election year and all that, but naturally as that improves, then so will the trucking sector. And so we'll be well positioned.
And then, we see these Waymos everywhere now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I know the whole talk's been, hey, long haul, we're going to get these self-driving trucks. What is your thoughts on that for the listeners and viewers that don't have the real experience in these auto and with how the industry may change based on the quote unquote self-driving on the long hauls? Do you see that has legs, and how does that affect you?
I think it can definitely help the production aspect of it. I still think we're a long ways off from truly unmanned. I think I look at the good example a lot of people share in industry, I share with your audience is like the airlines and airplanes. Yeah. So if you really know how an airplane works, they can take off, they can land, they can do all that, and they have 2 pilots, right? Mandatory, at least on some flights even more, right? You go international, different things, and they don't need those pilots technically, but then they're sitting there. But why? Right? Oh, because of the health and wellness of the people. What if there's an accident? All the what ifs and all the scenarios that happen in a plane, don't think are too dissimilar from a 80,000 plus vehicle rolling down the road. And there's a lot of other complexities with the touches. So I think that the driving job will change. I think productivity should change and be an improvement on being able to cover more miles or changing the role. But I still think for a long time they're going to want people, engineers, different types of people in the truck. To be monitoring, to be there in case something goes awry. I don't see it being fully blown. Now, let's say it does, right? And those trucks are running autonomously. I mentioned part of our core business model is building this national trailer fleet. Well, they still have to have trailer fleets. They just have to have networks of freight. So, let's say it goes that direction. I feel like we'll be well positioned because we'll have you know, hopefully one of the best customer, books in the country in regards to the largest retailers, CPG companies, manufacturers. We'll have the trailer pools that are tech enabled. And then whether it's, our partner carriers that currently haul that equipment or the robotic trucks that are unmanned, we feel like there's still a position in place for what we're building. And so we're wildly excited. I don't think we built it for that.
Yeah.
But if it does come,
right,
I feel like we're in a pretty good spot and not be, out on the backside being like, well, our business model doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. And it's not going to change anytime soon. I mean,
I think we got some time.
Yeah. As we close today, what are some of the things that, as you're running this company, you got the family, what are you doing to stay sane, for yourself, for mental and health?
So I definitely committed to the gym still. I get out of the bed at alarm goes off at 5. First thing is go get the workouts in. And I'm an avid golfer, right? And I continue to play that sport
so
and
you make time for golf.
I do, yeah. And my wife's incredibly supportive. I love getting out there. I love being outside. You got to cut stuff out. Like I don't watch hardly any TV.
That's good.
To be honest with you. But I love golf. I stay active, and then I've got a 6 and 9-year-old at home. So no matter how tired I am, they seem to have 100 activities that we can do, from playing hoops to running around the cul-de-sac to doing whatever. So between chasing my kids sports like many folks, and golf, I stay pretty busy. So.
And I assume on the golf course too, you sometimes get good business ideas. You're able to clear your head, breathe in the air. Get out of the hustle and bustle.
Yeah, I get out. Honestly, it's my getaway. Yeah. So when I go either hit golf balls, like some people don't even like the range and stuff. I actually love the range. I could go to the range for 2 hours with a coffee and some music and be just happy as a clam. I'll turn my phone off. I actually just leave it all because I feel like all week, literally from sun up, when I'm awake, emails, all the stuff, I'm just always thinking about it. So I really use golf as my getaway time. That's my a true escape, and which is good because in order to play golf, period, there's not a lot of room for outside thought. Yeah. Definitely good from a business networking perspective. I've done a lot of that, but when I'm on the course, it's pretty much about the fun and the camaraderie with the people I'm sharing it with. I really, that is such a break for me. It's probably my best place to just truly get away and shut off the business brain for a while.
Peak season coming up right now too.
Yeah.
Otherwise.
Yeah. It'll be a good year. Obviously, living in Phoenix, there's ample options. Yeah. And at one day in my career, I'll actually take up some of these friends and people on all these midweek foursomes and tournaments that I get invited to that I often pass on these days. So there'll be a day, I know there'll be an inflection point, maybe in FreightVana's future, where I don't feel so bad taking that Thursday off to go play. But
get you down to a scratch golfer eventually.
I was close. I was really close, and I've lost my way slightly, but I still got a fighter's chance. So.
Yeah. I'm sure I don't play much. Kick my ass, that's for sure. Well, we really appreciate it. I love that Denzel quote. Any last words of wisdom for, someone listening or a viewer watching that has the dream, has this idea, but just hasn't taken the next step?
Yeah, I'd say build a network, right? One of the areas that I often speak to folks, would speak to your community here, it's like your network is so powerful. Right. It is when I went to raise capital, right? It's friends and family and friends of friends. And it's two things. It's one, it's your network, and it's two, just how about you go about your daily life. Right. And I think it's just natural. People all want to show up. And, if I'm asking for money, right, to invest in a business, okay, that's one thing. But what have I shown that person over the last 10 years? What have I shown that person through a friendship? What have I shown that person as I went to school? What have I shown that person, right, in the interactions that we've had? Like, that'll be the reason why they either invest or they know a guy or a gal that wants to invest. And so being very intentional about your network and who you invest your time in. And then also just be very mindful that the way that you interact and treat people, it matters. And so investing in that network and also not investing it, I guess to my main point, when you need something is really key. So one of the things I always try to do is always make sure I make time and effort to ask people how I can help them. Yeah. Because I've gotten so much help from so many people.
Yep.
And I want to make sure that I make myself available. And it could be just a random phone call and I tell someone, hey man, I like what you do and keep your chin up. I know things are tough or whatever, right? It's just, what can I do from an act of kindness or support for somebody else, because ultimately that's the stuff that pays dividends and can help you grow professionally, personally, whatever that is.
Beautiful advice. Yeah, Jesse Itzler, who's someone that I look to as a mentor, he's just, send 3-4 texts a day just to, your network, just random, out of the blue, that I appreciate you, or I'm thinking of you. It takes 1 minute. Mm-hmm. But that text you get from somebody who's not expecting it, and you're not asking for anything, and there is no ulterior motive except that you really care. How are you doing?
Yeah,
it's such a little thing.
It is special. I follow Jesse too. He's got amazing content and perspectives and everything he does. And I agree. It's that willingness to show that kindness and that time. And like when you think about it, there's very rare surprises as an adult that are great. Yeah. And I think I unpack that a lot. What are the great surprises as an adult? Most of the time, our surprises, right, don't come in the form of happy things. This broke, that broke, something happened, right? And like that negative starts. So you're creating those surprises for someone with that text or that message. That is a surprise. That is a gift. They weren't expecting it, and it's joy or it's happiness or it's support. And so the ability to give that to other grown-ups who oftentimes those surprises just come in a negative form is incredibly powerful.
Incredibly powerful, yeah. Well, we're super excited to see the continued growth at FreightVana.
Appreciate it.
We talked today on, following the dream, taking a risk, building a company based on the missions and values that you expect to live by, and building it on purpose, authenticity, and for you, just understanding an industry of where you could do it better, and then focusing, lasering in on that niche, and then making it the best you can. For you, it's the customer service, the transparency, and the technology. And then surrounding yourself with the best team you can, and most importantly, letting them run.
Yeah,
letting them do their
letting
thing.
them be themselves.
Yep.
Let them be authentically themselves. I think that's a really powerful piece.
This has been great. Well, we appreciate you stopping by. We know how busy you are. Got to get back to the office or get on the golf course, but we will be following the success and look for big things from the firm, and from you being able to help employ 100 people, 300 people. That's a lot of opportunity that you're allowing these people to follow through on. So I think you're doing some great stuff. Continue, you and John and your leadership team and all of your employees. Keep doing what you're doing. We really appreciate it.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. All right, listeners, all the notes will be below the video, below the podcast itself. And stay tuned for a brand new episode of Your Wealth and Beyond later this month. Happy planning, everybody.